Hello and welcome to the Surrender Spectrum, InTune with Travis Anthony Johnson. You guys ever witnessed having an existential crisis? Well, I feel like I have one like every single morning. I don't want to get up out of bed, and I'm honestly looking for suggestions on how to do it, because I got this voice in my head that just tells me that you don't want to get up, you don't want to do anything, you just want to stay exactly where you are, laying in bed, because that's where you're comfortable. Well, you know what else I do when I'm trying to feel comfortable? A couple grams of this, couple, pints of that, a couple shots of this, a couple, whatever the hell, a couple names on the black book that I'm going to go through, a couple swipes, a couple hundred swipes on Tinder. It doesn't really matter. All I know is that they're tall tale signs that I need to be working on my spiritual fitness, because, just as quickly as I'm, telling myself that life is terrible when there's literally nothing wrong. I literally just woke up from having a good sleep to, having my phone to track down any of the numbers that I deleted so that I can get a baggie. Well, that's what brings us to this episode. This is the episode where we, discuss, working on that spiritual growth so that we can have that defense, working for us, even from the moment that we get up into a moment of existential crisis, right? We got to be prepared to tackle these moments, these hard moments, because they'll come, surrendering to this new way of life and turning your life around and stopping yourself from destroying your life from drugs and alcohol doesn't mean that your life is going to be perfect every day. In fact, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a struggle. And we need to, figure out ways that we can get through those tough times, because they will come. For me, they come often. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go use or drink over it. But the only reason behind that is because, I work on my spiritual fitness and finding ways to combat that, that mental obsession to use, right? So that I don't, reach that phenomenon of craving and then go off to the races. So I really have to look inside and see what those voids are. Like, what am I really struggling from, right? And usually it's just, my spiritual fitness. Like, I'm always taking my life into my own hands. And when I'm taking my life in my own hands, my ego likes to pretend that it is the beholder, right? And so it's trying to tell me what to do. It's trying to counsel me when it has no right doing so, because it's just trying to be my friend so that it can get what it wants, a week down the line, 5 months down the line, a year down the line, right? It's always just scheming, and it wants to seem like it's my best friend, right? So that it can, it's a defense mechanism, really, right? It's always just trying to act like it takes care of you, but it's the fight or flight mode, right? It'll be beneficial, when we're getting chased down by them pterodactyls and then, I don't know. I'm, for some reason, the only thing that comes to mind is a gopher. But to be quite honest, I would run from a gopher. I would run from a meerkat. I would run from a rat. Period. So let's get a little bit more interactive with the surrender spectrum, right? Like, that's why I asked, any advice, like I'm willing to take into consideration. So drop it in the comments, anything. I was extra nervous and bored today, so perfect time to record and press play. You know what I'm saying? It's no wonder I was walking around Toronto homeless, starved for food, but only seeking to fill that hunger with more drugs. For years, I just walked and walked and walked until I had the equivalent to trench foot. And, it makes perfect sense because I was at a war with myself. If I just stayed on the damn water wagon, I would have got a free ride everywhere I needed to be. Could even sleep knowing that I'll get to my destination safely. I mean, yeah, I could get my license, but that's some old Toronto habits that need to be broken. But it's one day at a time. I'll get there. I'm actually looking into getting my license, which is two completely different things that we're talking about. But when I'm working this new way of life, like, it gives me those opportunities to expand, expand who I am, expand the horizons of my skills and what I like to do and what I can do. And my whole life I never drove, but it's almost like subconsciously put myself in a position where I didn't have to get my license, right? Because I always had this fear of it because I've been in so many car crashes growing up when I wasn't the one driving. So it felt like a loss of control. And so, having moved to Toronto, it just made it that much easier to not have to get my license. But so I was already walking a lot, so I guess it made it a bit easier once I became homeless and just walked everywhere. And because I was on meth, fucking walking around this whole time, like trying to figure out, what's wrong with the fucking world around me instead of looking inside at what was wrong with me. I just walked and I refused to do anything about it, right? Like my pride was just running full-fledged and I refused to get help. Even like going on like Ontario Works or welfare, I guess, in other words, to get help, right? Like I thought that I was owed so much, so I just refused to do that. And I just kept walking and walking and walking. And I didn't stay in tents. I didn't stay in, shelters. I just walked and I walked and I walked. And if I needed to sleep, I just slept on the TTC and just went around and around and around. And so I guess living in Toronto, not driving, kind of helped me out in that sense. But I mean, is that really, was I thinking about that when I was growing up? I was like, yo, I'm going to live in Toronto, so I'm not going to have to drive because one day I'm going to be homeless and I'm really going to need to fucking know how to walk, which is just absolutely ridiculous. But I guess that's how it turned out. So, I guess I'm grateful I lived in Toronto. Basically, I was just in survival mode and needed to do whatever I could to get those drugs, right? Like I needed something because I was dying on the inside, right? And I would always just seek something that would take me out of myself, and that was the drugs. And there's Breeze. Told you she'd be in on some of those episodes. That's what I'm wondering. Anyways, like now I have to have the same desperation of a drowning man to grab what seemed like a flimsy reed, which turned out to be the loving hand of my higher power, right? I used the power of drugs to get me higher and to take me out of myself. And now I need to seek a higher power with the same desperation. I consciously try to seek my higher power with the same persistence that I would to get drugs, and nothing would stop me from getting drugs except for, the rock bottoms that I'm grateful for and don't take for granted, because something so paramount for turning my life around could have just as easily have been the rock bottom that put me 6 feet under, right? Jails never stopped me. Institutions never stopped me. I basically, have two choices. Once those two jails and institutions haven't stopped me, and that's the trudge the road of happy destiny with the freedom and gift of presence, enjoying the journey, or seek immediate gratification to end my misery into an early grave, right? And I'm choosing to treasure the road, right? It's about the journey now. If I need immediate gratification in some things, right? Like, I'm not perfect, right? I'll still go for a smoke or have a coffee or go to the gym, which is a good one for immediate gratification. Actually, my stepmom told me that yesterday. It's like a good thing for immediate gratification is going to the gym because you feel that burn, right? Just for today, I will take the opportunity to act as if I can accept a situation I used to run from. I used to run from the fact that I wasn't in control. I hated it. Before I was always directing the show and changing everything around me instead of changing myself. So, acting as if, it puts step 2, which is, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. It's acting as if puts step 2 into practice. Instead of coming to believe, I could act as if I do believe that a higher power can restore me to sanity. If I'm acting as if I'm acting as if I'm a part of God's plan, right? I welcome the miracles that are planned for that role. Directing the universal plan could have been diverting me from all the miracles that that my higher power had laid before me in the whole time, right? Like, I'm just getting in the way, and I'm literally, things could have been a lot better a lot earlier. Practicing rigorous honesty disconfigures that brick wall that our lies have built, that keep us from our innermost self. It takes action of disassembling the thing that keeps us from our higher power, right? And that's the spiritual malady, which is causing our mental obsessions, right? It's all these years of building these layers that are keeping us from the innocence of our childhood, right? And I think back to like around like grade 3, I remember like my ego forming, like, because I've had gone through the work and peeled away at all these layers to find out like what was actually wrong, right? Like, and because I had no idea, I was just blaming everything that happened fucking 2 minutes ago, let alone something that happened when I was like 7, 8 years old. And for me, like, it was, I got bullied at a young age, and I just didn't feel a part of, right? I felt like every other kid was different than I was, and I wanted to feel different, right? Because of the bullying, and it was like, one day my ego was formed and it said, "Don't worry, kid, like, I got this. I'm going to take care of you." And then it stood out, and it almost like bullied that child's fucking innermost self, because it knew that was the one that was getting bullied, right? So if the ego is like, "Don't worry, like, we're going to go my route instead of your route," that's basically just admitting that the ego thought that there was something as wrong as the bullies were making it out to be. So, it basically took the reins at that moment, and it felt right, because it felt like there was going to be some justice, right? Like, if I don't want to be this kid that's being bullied, then why don't I just become something that I'm not? And that's what happened, right? Like, that was grade 3. Then I started swearing my ass off. I love swearing, mate. Got me out of myself like no one's business. I took to it right away, and it was perfect timing because, we were in the 90s. So we were coming up on Eminem and Limp Bizkit and South Park, which I didn't watch, but same era, which also the Attitude Era of WWF. And it was just like, Jerry Springer, all those things. It was just a shit show and all rebellion. And it gave me the opportunity to just, feel like I was breaking the shell of this kid that everybody bullied, that nobody wanted around. Right. And hiding it. Like, I was, I'd go home and my parents would, my mom would just know me as who she would know me as, because, I didn't swear at home. I didn't need to be somebody different around her. It was just everyone else. And so, once the time came to start, having my ego's ego wings start flapping and taking flight, I was already getting high before I'd even started taking drugs. Right. It was just, the dopamine spike of being rebellious, which makes sense that, my artist name as a musician was the Rapscallion, and Rapscallion is a degenerate. Right. And, and though I keep Rapscallion, it's a part of my, it's like it is my ego. Right. Like, but as a musician, like, I remember changing my name. I had a copyright for the name Rapscallion, and I literally changed it just so I could add the word "the," because it allowed me to not live as Rapscallion. Like, it made it more of an entity, so that, like, when I'm performing, I can be the Rapscallion. I can put on that mask, and I can feel okay with taking it off when I'm done and go back to be Travis, right? Because there was a long moment where I was just Rapscallion all the time, and that was well after, like, the drugs had started, and being a touring musician and a bartender, and just an ego fucking out of control, really. And so, well before that, before Rapscallion was born, right, I was swearing, and then I eventually started drinking at like 12, and then smoking weed in high school and smoking cigarettes, and then before I know it, like, I'm getting drunk like almost every night while still being in high school, and smoking weed every single day. And it just gave me that freedom, right? It worked at the time, right? Like, if I needed to get out of myself, the drugs and alcohol did work. Like, of course it works. That's why we do it. But it works until it doesn't. But by that time, we're already trapped by the physical craving and mental obsession of it, right? At first, if somebody can just try something, even like cocaine, like the first time, I don't believe it did much to me. Same with smoking weed. The first time I smoked weed, I was like, I didn't really do much, but it was something was attracting me to it. Maybe if it was the, like, just the company that it kept, or the ritual of doing it. Like, it just seemed like a cool thing to do, and I just wanted to be cool, right? Because all the cool kids in grade 3 used to bully me. So that's where my ego had laid the map before me. It had already made all the destination points, right? And I didn't know. I was just along for the ride, right? Because I was just that innocent kid that didn't know what to do. And once I started feeling accepted, like I started to accept what I thought was myself, but it was my ego. I was accepting who I had become. And that's when it really, that's when like life had arrived, really. I look back and I was like, and I still feel it today, that those were some of my best times. Because, in my story, a lot of my using and my drinking and stuff like that, like they were all good times. Well, not all, but a lot of them were good times, right? Because I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of, good stories, good memories. And the thing was that, as people started to grow up, I started to just shift and go to new groups of friends, or go to a different party, right? Like if my friends who knew how to party, like me and my friends, we loved to party. But it would only take one party or a weekend or something like that. And then, they'd be going back to their life, but I'd just be going to the next party. Right. And that went on for my entire 20s. I had moved to Toronto. One of my best friends invited me over. Wasn't my best friend at the time, but we quickly became best friends. And he invited me to stay with him for the weekend while I was recording one of my solo albums, which I never released, well before Rapscallion, as Travis Johnson. I was recording with my aunt and uncle in Toronto, and my friend had invited me out to, hang out with him because he was from Kitchener, and I had known his sister for a long time, but I knew of him, and he invited me out to, go party with him in Toronto, and we became inseparable. And he asked me, like, before that weekend was done, he's like, do you want to just like, split my bedroom and you can stay here? And I remember like calling my mom and I was like, yeah, I'm not coming home. And I was already, partying at quite a heavy rate, but that was just alcohol and weed at that time. But the era of MDMA and EDM was beginning, and not far after that was cocaine, and that's a whole nother. That there's so much to that era that I could write book after book after book, but I gotta save some content, you know what I'm saying? So y'all keep coming back. And it was that same friend that actually, he, because all we did was party in Toronto, like, especially with the cocaine, like when, fast forward to when our lives were falling apart. And it wasn't just fun anymore. I remember I had gotten, we used to live together, me, my friend, his sister, and two other of our close friends. And like that house, the Palmerston house, was a fucking shit show. Like I remember one time, like we were all about Skrillex. We love Skrillex. I still love Skrillex. And it was like a Skrillex weekend. And I remember me and my one friend, she got us tickets to go see Skrillex. And then the next day was Skrillex, like after party. Oh no, it was a whole nother Skrillex concert at the Hoxton. And we had a lot of ins at the Hoxton. So we had like, like a VIP section for Skrillex with like 20 or 30 people or something like that. And I remember going to Skrillex the first night, not sleeping, having to go to work while getting high the entire time. And it was like, I was working like a juice bar for like some marathon in the city. And so I was obviously just getting juiced the whole time, you know what I'm saying? And then went back to the house and I knew that I knew that we had Skrillex that night. And so I'm like, I need to go to sleep. Like I have to sleep. And I remember like going to sleep for like maybe an hour or two. And I wake up and my friends was like, yo, we got your booze. Like, let's go. We got to get ready. So I remember just like bringing like the 6-pack of tall cans, old Milwaukee Blue, tall cans into the shower and just start guzzling them in the shower. And I remember just hearing out in the house in Palmerston it was double sandstorm by Darude. It wasn't single sandstorm by Darude. It was double sandstorm. And it was like listening to the song in canon with itself. And it just like got the vibe of like, we're going in, but we're going in twice as hard as you usually would. And, so we're getting lit. And then people start showing up. And I will never forget this weekend because like we went to that Skrillex party or to that Skrillex show. We were blasted. And then we went back to Palmerston House to party. And I shit you not, this party, and I had friends from Kitchener. I had friends from Toronto. Like everyone was at this party. And I remember like, I think 2 days after that second Skrillex show, I like went and I just passed out on my buddy's bed. I didn't even make it to my own bed. And I passed out. There's a party roaring, just raging. And then I remember waking up and the party's still going. It's just a whole nother lineup of people. And like, this is the type of partying that like we were doing, not even every weekend, like every day. Cause we all worked in the bar industry. It was just a shit show and we're all coke fiends. And so my one buddy, that introduced me to the Toronto scene. We are both our lives. We all got kicked out of that house, or not all of us, but I think like maybe 3/5 got kicked out of that house. And after that, like all 5 of us did not talk to each other for the longest time because we all just like loathed each other. But luckily we're all friends now. But I remember, years later, my buddy had started going to AA meetings and I was already back living in Kitchener at my parents' house because I got kicked out of the Palmerston house. And I got kicked out because I just refused to pay rent. Like it's never paid rent ever. And like my thing was like, I used to middleman for people buying cocaine. And the thing was that like, I made more money than the dealer did because I was middleman, because the stuff was so good that every gram that was bought, it was cut half with Novocaine, which is like your numbing agent from the dentist. And so, but people thought that the numbing was the good thing. Like I remember somebody got just the normal cocaine without the benzocaine and they didn't like it as much because it didn't make them numb. They thought that the numbing was the good stuff. So we had no problem cutting it 50-50 with Novocaine. And so I would make either $50 per gram that I sold, or I would get a free half gram for every gram that I sold. And obviously I took the half gram because I was a lunatic. I was just go off the rails, right? Like it was like, okay, I got to make at least like $600 and some dollars by tomorrow. So I'm just going to sell like I'm going to sell like fucking $1,200 fucking dollars worth of cocaine, which is not that much. And, but the first one, that one's going to be, so I get a half so that I have the energy to do it. But then by the time that, as I keep going, I keep running out. So I just keep re-upping. And by the time that, that I've made that $1,200 worth of chops, I've also done $600 worth of cocaine. And that's just how life went for me because I was an absolute fiend. And so, yeah, I didn't pay my rent and I got kicked out of Palmerston House, which was, I feel bad looking back on it because at that time, I totally screwed up my friendships and screwed over my friends. But I'm grateful to not be in Palmerston House anymore, because holy shit, was that house just a shit show. But my one buddy, by the time that he started going to AA, and I was visiting in Toronto because I didn't live there anymore, and he was like, "Hey man, like I'm going to an AA meeting, and I was wondering if you want to come, like just give me support." And because I was staying with him that weekend, I was like, "Yeah, of course I'll go with you." And that was the first time I went to an AA meeting, and I remember sitting down at the meeting. Was called Love and Tolerance in Toronto, and I remember sitting down, and they're going around being like, "Hey, my name is this and that. Like, I'm an alcoholic." And my buddy's like, "Yeah, you don't have to say anything. You can just be like, I'm just a guest." And I was like, "Yo, shut the fuck up, man." I was like, "Yo, I'm going to say it. I can't wait to say it. I can't wait to admit to everyone that I'm an alcoholic, because I am. And I'm a good one too. I'm a damn good alcoholic." And so it came my turn. I was like, "Hey, my name's Travis, and I'm an alcoholic." Yeah. I was like, "Yeah." Like fucking looking around at people, like fucking, like I've come home to the right place. And then it got to the front of the chairperson, and then he starts talking about God, and I'm just like, whoa. I'm like, hold on a second. What did he just say? He just said God. I was like, all right, I take it back. I'm not an alcoholic anymore. And lo and behold, it was the right place. I was exactly where I needed to be. But that was the first of many times that I went into an AA meeting and didn't listen to a damn thing that they were talking about. All I heard was something that benefited my ego, and be like, "Yeah, I'm the best drinker. I'm a badass drinker. Oh yeah, I got a problem with drinking. What the fuck are you talking about? Like you tapping out after 2 beverages." And I'm like, "Why do I got the problem with drinking? I can keep going forever, dog." But we started to hear different things every time you get, hitting those rock bottoms. And I had many rock bottoms to come, and I'm sure we'll get into those. Well, I know we'll get into them. We're definitely going to get into them. We're just getting started, right? But I got to look at as much as it's funny to laugh at those dark times, right? I have to be real with it. Like, there was some dark times that I hurt a lot of people, and I hurt my family, and I thought I was just hurting myself, right? I thought, oh, I had a problem. Why is that affecting anybody else? It's because people love me, right? People genuinely care about me. And to this day, I still have a lot of friends, and it's growing again, because, I'm still fixing, the wreckage of my past, and those relationships that I had tarnished with my youth. So, I can't, it's got to be with a grain of salt. I think that's the saying. And if it's not, whatever, it is now. Oh man, I have to ask myself, like, what do I have hope about today? Because back then I had no hope. I couldn't see past the dread of what my future could be, because I couldn't get over how much pain I was in from the past, right? And it was clouding my presence. Like, it wouldn't allow me to plan ahead, unless I was high, that I would overshoot. Like, I'd be one of those guys on cocaine, be like, "Yo man, so like I came up with this plan. It's going to be like the best shit ever that you ever heard. And it's going to be fucking making us $1 billion, right? And we're all like fucking, fucking pasting at the mouth like pure cottonmouth kings." But, they were all just completely blown out of proportion. Like they're just so like ridiculous. There's no plan. They're just like a pure outcome, because that's what we are. We're all about attaching to the outcome, and nobody plans like on cocaine and that plan. Well, I can't say nobody, but like for me, like I'm just not worrying about the journey aspect, or like the blueprint, or not even the blueprint, but like the plan of execution. I'm just thinking about it being executed, right? And then I'd sober up, and like I would just wish that I was executed. So there was no presence because of the shame of yesterday, and because of the fact that I couldn't execute what I had planned on cocaine the night before. So I would just hate everything. So, but now that I'm living, being present, right, I have a lot of things to be hopeful for, right? I have hope for a life far superseding anything I could have imagined, or that I could imagine. Like a great life beyond my wildest dreams, and a loving God or higher power that can and will get me through the hard times. It's important to ask myself these questions. Like the hardest thing, like I said, when I was at that meeting, the first one was like I heard God and I was like completely shut off from it, right? And then I had to go back out and get my ass kicked before I hit another sort of rock bottom to force me into, like just get everyone off my back. All right, yeah, I'll go to fucking detox, or like I'm in the hospital, like, and I'll actually genuinely scare myself to a point where I'm willing to try something new, right? And the God thing was hard for me for a long, long time, and I had a sponsor eventually when I got to the point where I was willing to start doing work, and he just said, we got 3 rules if we're going to work together. And one is rigorous honesty, no embellishing. Like if you're at a meeting and you're talking about your use and you're saying that, I drank like a 60 a day, but you only drank like a Mickey, then you're lying. Like that's embellishment. So we had to practice rigorous honesty. The other thing was we had to get down on our knees and just pray to a higher power. It didn't matter if we knew what it was or if we even believed in it. We just had to get into the habit of doing it, because we had to start living differently. We had to stop living as if we were the God of our understanding, like we were the center of the universe, right? It's about humility. And so just get down on your knees and pray morning and night, right? And for me, trying to figure out what God was pushed me further away. Like it's only that I came to believe once I stopped trying to figure out what it was, because I'll never figure it out. And it doesn't matter. It's a God of my misunderstanding, and it works for me, right? And the other thing was shut the fuck up and listen. And if y'all know who Travis Anthony Johnson is, you know that, especially on cocaine, that Travis fucking Johnson doesn't shut the fuck up. When Rapscallion's out, like the last thing he's gonna do is shut the fuck up, and of course listen. But those were the 3 rules, and that's what I needed, right? And so like looking at it now, like coming to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, right? I had to ask, like, did I have any fears about coming to believe? Because obviously I had a fear of it in the first place when I went to my first meeting. So I have to ask myself that now, like just check in and honestly, no, like I'm very much at peace about it in this moment. And I know that it's not always going to be the case. I'm going to have those bad days, but I know if I have the tools to constraint flip, the equation, to realign myself in faith, that things always work far better than they would if I'm living fear based. And even like ask myself, like, what does the phrase like "we came to believe" mean? And for me, it's like we humbly became so desperate that gratitude guided us in our surrender to see that our darkest times would indeed lead us to a light that we had taken for granted once before, right? And that's what I was talking about before with like God is just setting so many miracles for that role if you just play the role right. But when we're trying to direct it, we could be directing his miracles right out the window, right? Or just bypassing them all completely. So and I have to ask, like, do I have any barriers? Like, what is the barrier that's making it difficult for me to believe? And it's my ego. It's straight up my ego, which goes to tell me that my problem is me, which I think I talk about in every single one of these episodes. My problem is me. And, and that doesn't mean like when I say that my problem's me, my ego automatically wants to be like, okay, well, now I'm going to feel like shit because you said that I'm the problem, right? And boo-hoo fucking me, and self-pity's gonna fucking come out, and then you're gonna try to make me feel uncomfortable so that my ego can try to get what it wants by fucking having its sob story to get me to fucking go get some drugs or alcohol. But not today, bitch. Not today. And I guess we're rolling past the 40-minute mark, which just flew by. I remember I didn't want to do this today, and now we're at the end, which is pretty good. I don't really know what I said, but the good thing is I can go back and listen to it, and I'm not gonna edit it. I'm just gonna let it be. There was no burps on the fucking microphone today, so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for you all. And I'm grateful for my life, and I'm grateful to, I'm grateful for my higher power for, aligning this journey before me, because I would have never thought that I was doing recovery podcasts. Never in a million years. And as I just hit my 3-month mark yesterday, I'm going to wrap this up and head to an AA meeting and go get my 3-month chip, because you know what? Those what seem like little wins, those chips are actually massive wins. And I need to treat them as such, because I got an ego that's going to try to downsize it and not make it seem like it's that big of a deal, right? Like, make me feel bad that I should have more time, that, oh, you've relapsed, you should be better than this, or something like that, just because it's not getting what it wants. I'm gonna have my cake, and I'm gonna eat it. I'm gonna eat it too. And my ego is going to be like, why are you not giving me a piece? And be like, oh, I thought we were a thing. I thought it was you and me together. So you can decide whether or not you just had some cake. But I'm not going to give you some extra cake, because you aren't an actual extra fucking entity. Bitch. And that's that. And, and I thank you for listening to my surrender spectrum rant. So remember, stay surrendered, stay in tune. Peace.